The cowboy left a note in her saddle that she still reads today. Along the Great Divide, 1951, Golden Age, minutes. The note was 3 lines. I wrote it on the back of a telegraph form I had in my breast pocket, the one where I'd copied down the new fence ordinance for Garrett County. Tore off the bottom third. Stubby pencil, the kind you wet on your tongue. I don't remember exactly what I wrote, I've tried, but she does, and that's the part I can't square even now. That was the spring of 1887, and I had been riding the high desert basin for the better part of 7 years without anyone much noticing. That's not complaint. It was just the fact of it. I was a deputy then, technically under Ed Mobley, though Ed had gone soft in the knees and the gut and mostly stayed in town to play cards. The real work fell to me. Riding the Great Divide country in all its weather, which is to say all its moods, checking drift fence, running down strays, occasionally hauling some jackass back from where he didn't belong. Nobody pinned a ribbon on you for that kind of work. You just did it and came in hungry. I was 41 years old and I had a scar along my left jaw from a fence wire and 2 fingers on my right hand that didn't close right anymore from a fall I took in the breaks above Crow Basin. My horse was a gray quarter horse named Taft, and I had owned him 8 years, and he was the most honest animal I had ever met. I tell you these things because you need to know what kind of man I was. Not a ruined man. Not a man who'd quit. Just a man wearing down at the edges like a good bridal will and not expecting anything from anyone, which is a reasonable enough position when nothing has ever come unexpected. I met her because her father's ranch ran east along Comanche Creek, and the line fence between his property and the federal grazing allotment had been cut in 4 places by that spring, and I was the one they sent to look into it. Her name was Me. She was a widow of 2 years. Her husband had been killed by a lightning-struck horse, which seemed a ridiculous way to lose a man, and I didn't say so. She ran the north side of the operation with her brother, who was young and reckless and not much help, and she ran it well from what I could see. She met me at the gate in a work coat with the collar turned up, and she shook my hand like a man, firm and once, and she looked at me level. Not the way most people look at a deputy. People mostly look at you like you're there to either fix their problem or complicate it. She looked at me like she was sizing up whether I knew what I was doing. "You'll want to see the east corner first," she said. "That's where it's worst." I rode that fence with her 3 mornings over a week. She knew the country. She'd grown up on it. She told me things about the drainage and the wind patterns and the way the elk moved through the high draws in October that I filed away and used for years after. She wasn't performing for me. She was just competent and plain-spoken, and she had a way of going quiet when she was thinking that wasn't awkward. It was just quiet. I liked it. I wasn't used to liking things. On the 4th day, I was heading back up over the divide toward town, and I stopped at her barn to return a hobble rope she'd lent me. She wasn't there. Her horse was in the paddock, Nora, a big chestnut mare she'd raised from a yearling, and I stood there a moment with the rope in my hand, and I had this feeling I don't quite have words for even now. It was something like, this woman sees what she's looking at. It was something like, I don't want to just ride away. I left the rope on a post. And then I don't know what came over me. I'm not a letter-writing man. I never have been. I took out that telegraph form, and I wrote 3 lines and folded it and tucked it down into the gullet of her saddle where it would be warm and dry, and she'd find it when she next saddled up. I rode away and didn't look back because looking back was not a thing I did. I didn't see her for 6 weeks. I had business in the south end of the county, a boundary dispute that turned ugly, and then I was sick with a chest cold for 10 days in my room above the feed store, and I didn't write anyone and nobody came. That's just how it was. When I finally rode back out toward Comanche Creek, it was midsummer and the grass was tall and the sky was the color of a shallow river, and I didn't let myself think about what I was doing. I was just checking the fence. That was true. The fence still needed checking. She was in the kitchen garden when I came through the gate. She straightened up and looked at me across the yard, and there was a moment where neither of us moved. Then she said, "I wondered if you'd come back." I got down off Taft. I didn't have a thing prepared to say. I said, "How's the fence holding?" She said, "The fence is fine." And then she said, quiet, "I still have that note." I didn't know what to say to that. I said, "It wasn't much." "No," she said, "it was exactly enough." She brought me inside and made coffee. We sat at her table and talked until the light went low and her brother came in for supper and gave me a look I didn't try to read. I rode back in the dark, which was nothing new. Taft knew the way. We were married that October before the first snow. I won't tell you it was easy every day after that. Hard country stays hard whether you're loved or not, and we had lean years and we had a winter in there, the winter of '91 that nearly finished the cattle and nearly finished me. But that's the thing about her. She's the kind of woman who looks at a thing directly and doesn't flinch, and what she looked at in me, she looked at it directly, that first morning at the fence, and she decided it was worth something. I've thought about that a good deal. How a person can go years and years in a place and nobody sees them. Not really. They see the badge or the horse or the work, but not the man. And then one person looks at you, not even dramatically, just level, the way you'd look at a piece of ground you're thinking of working, and something in you straightens up. Something you didn't know had been bending. She still has the note. She keeps it in a small tin box in the drawer of the nightstand on her side of the bed. I know because I've seen her take it out. Not often, now and again. She unfolds it and reads it and folds it back. I asked her once what she does when she reads it. She thought about that. Then she said, "I remember what you saw fit to say." That's all she said. We've been married 23 years now. I'm not a young man and I'm not a soft one, and the fingers on my right hand still don't close right, and the scar is still on my jaw. But most evenings she sits on the porch with me after supper, and we watch the light go off the divide, and sometimes she puts her hand over mine on the armrest, and she doesn't say anything, and I don't say anything either. There's not much to say. She picked me, that's the whole of it. In all that big empty country, she read 3 lines I wrote on the back of a government form, and she kept them and she chose.